Welcome to the NEPA Scene Podcast, Episode 2. We're going to be talking about different forms of media distribution this time around. Get a little bit into music, film, the internet, all kinds of ways to get your art out there. I wanted to start just by kind of giving a brief of what we've been doing on the site in the past week. We just had our first NEPA Scene open mic at the Woodlands on Tuesday.
How'd that go?
Not bad. I would have hoped for more of a turnout, but we did, reach some people that hadn't heard of the site before. And,
that's cool then.
So, we had some fans that showed up, some supporters, which was really cool to see, some people there that, in the flesh and not just, clicking around online. But we had mostly comedians, actually.
Really?
I figured, okay, open mic, all the musicians are going to be coming out of the woodwork because we do so much music stuff. And 2 musicians showed up, and neither of them, I don't think, had even heard of the site at that point.
So apparently, inadvertently, Rich is huge on the underground comedian circuit.
Yeah, and I had no idea. So that was actually
was
cool.
Jimmy Reynolds one of them? Was he there?
He was the only one.
The only one that mattered.
Yeah. He just walked up and recited website. That's all you did was you read like the reader available thing. You're not going to talk at all?
I will.
I just snorted. I'm sorry. All right, go back. Sorry.
So we did that. That was cool. We're gonna have another one. Which when this goes online, it'll be tomorrow. So tonight we'll.
Are you gonna do them every week?
Yeah, well, we're gonna try and see how it goes, see if it gets a crowd. I think we're gonna try like this week. We're doing it a little bit earlier than we did last week because I think it was a little too late for some people. Because you got work the next day and stuff like that. So hoping to maybe get the dinner crowd and stuff to it.
It's at 4 p.m. And there's a spaghetti supper.
No, I wish there was though.
That would be awesome.
No, I wish, but that's really cool that you guys that you're doing that. I'm really surprised that comedians showed up.
Yeah, and
good for. That's awesome too.
They were funny too. We're putting up the videos tonight.
There's some that weren't.
Well, it's an open mic. You never know what you're gonna get. But
that's how comedians do it. Like they try out their material.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so.
Well, a lot of the guys kind of came prepared. The guy who won, actually, because we kind of vote on who we think is the best one of the night, and everybody gets a say in that. And Zach Hammond, he was hysterical, and he had he could have gone a full hour easily of prepared material. Like he's professional, he was really good.
I just think that's really funny. It's like,
why is that?
You don't
funny?
even have to hear his material. You're just
no. I just think it's funny where he's like, look,
Mark's easy to please.
I'm real simple, but it's just really funny. He's like, if you want, I know it's an open mic, but I can do a full night. You know what I mean? It's like good for him.
Maybe that's what it'll develop into.
Would you say?
It's full to the brim.
Why, when I laugh, do I sound like Muttley?
Who's Muttley?
Muttley, the Hanna-Barbera dog, who's always like...
Oh, okay.
Didn't he take a bite out of crime?
No, that was...
That's McGruff.
Our cartoon dogs have already derailed the conversation.
Yeah, okay. So keep going. Sorry about the...
So we had an interview with the Beelzebubs, which I assumed they were from Satan, but apparently they're from Tufts University. They're a young a cappella group of good-looking guys. So I don't know where that name came from or why, but we have an interview with those guys. We did a song premiere this week of Down to Six's Oceans. They have a new album coming out soon.
Love that band.
Yeah, they're great, and they've actually approached us about doing the song premiere. So that was really great that they're tuned into what we're doing and everything. And we also had a short film premiere too by a guy named Jamie Suter, who he does local films in the area. I know 25/8 was involved in that. I think I saw you in there somewhere.
He was one of the creepy.
I was, and it's interesting that you bring that up because I'm actually like agreeing with comments about how bad my performance is on Facebook as we speak.
People said that. People actually.
Well, no, it wasn't like it, but it was like, I was basically pointing out my own faults at the moment where it's like, hey, I'm fat, and then other people are like, hey, you're fat, and it's like, yeah, I know, I am, but that's not what I said. Like I came up with like the lame brain idea of being like, I should do this in an Irish accent. And Jamie, like, God bless Jamie. Jamie was like, fuck yeah. And then my first line.
It was Irish, right?
Yeah, but my first line came out like I was from Alabama. And then like every line after that was Irish. But like the first line was like, it was literally like, well, come on down here to do this. And then it was like, but when you go do that. And it was just like, oh my God.
You looked like German though, like the way that
I know. I look like I was in like Sprockets, and I had to do. And Jamie and I was like, Jamie, please, can I redo it and whatever. He's like, no, man, it was awesome. And I'm like, all right, my failed performance is brilliant. But everybody there, like, that's the cool thing about like this community, man, where it's like, everybody kind of just does their best to work together, and then I'll come in and ruin it,
Muff it up.
He speaks from the control room. Yeah, no, but Jamie had a really good. It's a really funny idea, and the performances in it are awesome, minus mine. So that's all I got to say about
You did good. You were good.
Yeah, but I'm memorable for the faults of it.
Well, we're our own worst critics.
But you watched that and you went.
I thought it was phenomenal.
Not his best work.
I thought it was phenomenal.
Cory walked around for hours with the same accent. He couldn't shake it.
A Southern Irishman. That's what Cory was doing. Cory just dropped it about 5 minutes before we started the podcast. Which I'm fine. You're back to your NEPA ease, which is
good. Up there
from the line. All right, sorry, we tangent.
So let's introduce our guest for this week. Cory, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Cory Wolff. What? Marky's killing me right now.
I like to criticize my friends.
My name is Cory Wolff, and I'm the president of a local record label called Everyone You Know Entertainment. I don't know. I've been around the music scene for a little bit now and put out a few records. I also work as a music marketer for an agency based in New York called Dotted Music. So Everyone You Know, we put out records, we put on events, Culture Shock we put on, which we didn't do last year, but we're actually going to do it again this year. So
what is Culture Shock?
It's an all-day music and art festival.
Okay, yeah.
I thought you had another question.
No. Yeah, my next question is, can you continue?
You just looked at me like you were going to talk.
No, that's how, Cory, this is how conversation happens, is we look at people.
I don't like to talk to people.
Well, did you close your eyes? Jimmy, that's why Jimmy's in like the glass box of emotionless.
Anyways, Culture Shock, it's an all-day music and art festival. Last time we did it, we had, I want to say, 15 acts over 2 stages. There was an art show. We had big video game tournaments on projector screens. I think that's about it. Did I mention it all, Marky?
Yeah, no, it was great.
I don't know. I'm still commenting on my performance and a fine dining experience.
Oh,
sorry,
man.
It's social media. I'm just trapped. So continue.
Next time we should have you come down to Culture Shock and just do like a little performance.
It's not really a performance. It's just like me awkwardly at a microphone,
Spoken
like not knowing what to say next. Like that's my whole. Will somebody else talk?
It's very entertaining to watch you do that, though.
Yeah, but it's because I feel like I'm exploding, and like everyone's watching like this slow motion car crash of me trying to formulate another thought. Okay, to me that was funny. God damn it, move on.
Lauren, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so this week's topic is on the media distribution that we are dealing with across all medias in the industries that we are respectively working in. So, first of all, Cory, in your experience in the music world.
It's like Diane Sawyer like talking to you.
Am I making you nervous looking at you? Do you want me to look away? I can look away.
Don't look at me while you're doing it.
Mark is weirding me out besides anybody.
Mark, stop looking at Cory.
I'm going to have to do this next time via Skype. So we can turn the computer around.
You've experienced some changes since
From boyhood.
Since you hit puberty.
Since entering the music.
All right, so Cory, take two. Go, Lauren.
The music industry has undergone a lot of upheaval over the past few years, and that's kind of an understatement. I think everybody's kind of abreast of the different situations that are going on in terms of music, especially in distribution, how people access music, how people obtain it, how artists choose to release it. There's a lot of things going on even in the past week or so in terms of how artists are choosing to kind of
Has there been?
rein in how they're dealing with how their music is being released. So let's talk about that.
I actually just wrote in my article on NEPA Scene, I think it was a few weeks ago, about how the music industry is kind of in like a weird position right now. And it's something that's happened continually since there was a music industry. And one of the biggest things of that right now is distribution. Back in the day, the record labels, one of their biggest assets was distribution. They could actually manufacture, the record, the CD, whatever it is. They could actually manufacture it, distribute it throughout the country, throughout the world.
The majority of all their money came from, though, wasn't it?
A ton of it, yeah.
It was.
A ton of it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why that was the main reason that was one of the main reasons that you wanted a record deal, was because they could get your album. If you were a band from PA, they could get your album in California, in Canada, wherever, in Europe. But it's not like that so much anymore because of, the internet. So it's
interesting because in previous iterations where we've seen the technology shift and change, we've seen a resale cycle where people have to rebuy the albums that they've had previously on tape. They have to rebuy it on CD. So there was another market to make their money back on even the same content.
Yeah, how come nobody ever complained about that?
Because it was the way it was. And then when it went from CD to digital, that changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's what I think even Band-Aid 30, the Ebola fundraiser that they just did. Mm-hmm. It's like a We Are the World type deal.
They still do Band-Aid?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well,
they just the Willie Nelson one?
That's Farm Aid.
Oh, no, it's Farm Aid. It's Farm Aid. But Band-Aid is
Gatorade. I don't know which one it was.
But Band-Aid is now it sounds weird saying it, but that was the one where it's a whole bunch of celebrities and singers that got together. It's like the We Are the World one that they did in 84.
George Michael, right?
Yeah.
And Sting?
Yeah, a whole bunch of them back in 84.
That's who you remember. George Michael and Sting.
And Phil
who
Collins,
would remember.
too. Yeah.
No, that
and
was...
Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson.
No, that was
on
Live
there.
Aid.
No, we're not talking about
You're talking
concert.
about Live Aid. The one with Queen?
No, he's right. He's right.
Where they benefited, they did like a music video together.
Yeah, it's like a track that there's a ton of
We
artists
Are the
on.
World.
And all the money went to, I forget what it was for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was for Africa. It was Artists for Africa.
Right.
Okay, so I'm
Maybe
kind of
that's
like
the
in the
one it was.
ballpark.
You're thinking like a live concert, but it was
Live Aid was the concert they had.
Yeah.
Right.
This is
okay, so Band-Aid something. Okay, all right.
Band-Aid's a track.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Oh,
Do
all
they
right.
feed the world,
I don't even
right?
remember what I was saying. How is that relevant to what I'm saying right now?
We were talking about how the distribution was changing digitally.
How they were just talking about how that track's not going to be as successful as the one they did in 84 because of things like that. Because now they're only getting $1 for the track, whereas in 84 they had, a couple different versions of it and they would sell it on CD and they make a ton of money because the markup on CDs was so much. But now that it's digital, they're not making anywhere near as much. And I forget the guy's name. The main guy that did it basically just said, delete it and download again type deal.
What do you mean?
That's exactly what he said. It was in Digital Music News today. He was going on. Yeah, he was going on about how they're not going to make as much money. I can't remember the guy's name. If I saw him, I would know.
So he wants you to pay more money, i.e., delete it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So is that the new business model?
Well,
we need to make more money for our album. So can you please buy it, delete it?
Well, that's really the question at this point. Where does a band make money?
Advertising.
exactly. Revenue What?
You put it on YouTube, and then there's an advertisement that pops up
they
prior
barely
to.
make any money off of that. And half the time, if it's a major label artist, the record label's taking a pretty big size chunk of that.
Wouldn't it be awesome if there was a commercial for Kraft mac and cheese in the middle of a Taylor Swift song?
We can't forget that the music industry isn't just the band and the artist. And I'm sorry that I sound very corporate America right now, but to be fair, there's a lot of people whose livelihoods are built upon supporting that act to make sure it gets to the audience that it's supposed to get to. And removing that distribution channel that the entire industry was set up on has created a kink in the flow.
But that was more of the blue collar side of the industry was distribution. It was the manufacturing, the shipping.
A lot of that, but
the customers, the sales.
Well, there were a ton of jobs that were lost. Look at WIA.
Around here.
Yeah, just as a local example.
Well, that's because there's no physical copy anymore.
That's the point.
Exactly.
Right, but
you're still Instagramming from last week?
No.
But we lost.
What do you mean?
I think because
he doesn't know what he means.
File sharing is inevitable, right? So what people have done is attached advertising to it. So people are going to grab the album or a track and they're going to upload it to YouTube. That's how I watch. That's how I listen to all my music. You can't go on Pandora and say what you want to listen to. And I know on Spotify you can, but at least on Pandora you can't. So what I do is when I want to hear a specific track, I just go on YouTube on my phone. But I have to listen to an advertisement first.
But then doesn't YouTube have a clickable link so you can go buy the track?
Yeah, but who does that? That's the whole. I'm just speaking for the general public. That's the problem with the system. That's
why they just rolled out Music Key, YouTube Music Key, which just came out this week actually, which is part of Google Play All Access. So now artists are making money besides advertising. They are making a per stream royalty off of that as well. As long as there was like this big thing between the indies and Google, as long as the label or the artist opted in for it, of course. But
yeah, but is that like? Are you talking about like the people who are? It's like Loner Guy 227 uploading like a Beatles track, and
but then they're going to delete that for copyright infringement, but somebody else is going to upload it again. It's always going to be there because there's no way of getting rid of it.
That might change.
No, there's some of them that are very good at getting it removed.
Yeah.
It depends on how big of a team you have monitoring that stuff.
Yeah, but then that costs money too because you need to have a team.
Or the bots. They also have the bots that are looking out for those audio signals.
Is that why?
Yeah, and just because, listen, YouTube knows that it's there.
Yeah.
Like they pick up on it. And a lot of the times the copyright holder will just say, okay, because that particular video is getting, 2 million views, a ton of views or whatever. And the way that it works with YouTube is if somebody uploads a song that they don't own the copyright to, they have two choices. They could monetize it through advertising, where they get a portion of the advertising, but the majority of it goes to the copyright holder, or they just remove it altogether.
See, but you had, excuse me, all I've had to drink today is coffee, Mountain Dew, and Starburst. But you had a thing here a couple weeks ago where it was like 3 hours in, and like we still didn't figure out like how to market and sell your music.
I mean, we got a little off topic.
Yeah, but I mean, like that usually happens with everybody. But I don't think anybody really knows like the intricacies of like what is involved. Like people, like I think I said during that thing, it was a lot of the people think like if you build it, they will come.
No,
and it's not. It's not that. And when Lauren talks about like the fact of there's an industry there that was basically
it was booming.
Aside from the executives, everybody pretty much lost their jobs, and a lot of the executives did too because there's no like how much does it cost to hit upload. And then how much does it cost to hit download? Like, what's your overhead on that?
And that's a whole nother fight that artists are dealing with now because they're not getting paid
mechanical.
They're not getting the mechanical. They're getting a digital stream. I forget how it works out, but the artist is getting screwed basically. Whereas they categorize an iTunes download as I can't remember, as a license, I think, instead of a mechanical royalty. But
it's a retransmission rather than a copy.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And this brings us back.
Was that set up by the powers that be so that they can make more money?
Absolutely.
Essentially.
So how much? So I'm, I think that there's a wealth of talent in this area through any genre of music, any genre of art, what they want to do. So at the end of the day, like for 99 cents, I'll just use who just did a song
Down to 6.
Down to 6.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if I want to go online and download their new single, and I want to go on U2's, and download their new single, each one's 99 cents. Is U2 getting more money than Down to 6?
It depends. It depends on their label contract. Where with U2, they're like superstars, so they make a pretty good percentage. They have a pretty good royalty.
But they're also guys that make all their money on touring. Like they'll make $700 million on a tour.
Well, that's how most smart artists are starting. That's the main revenue stream right now. For them is touring, live performance.
And what, licensing your name,
brand partnerships. Yeah.
Now, do most bands on average benefit from having a label at this point, or do you see the opposite?
It depends. It depends on the person. It's different, for everybody. Some artists, most of the time, artists are creative, and a lot of the times, people that are creative aren't necessarily good at
business,
accounting, and business and things like that. So, but sometimes there are artists that are very creative musically and they're very good at business.
I think it's it's
rare
that combination of business acumen and
it's rare.
Incredible creativity is,
Definitely.
That's rare. You're either one or the other.
Yeah. But at the same time, you can only go to a certain point independent, which is you can still be very successful, but you can't be at U2 status independent. You're just not, that's not going to happen. If you do it right, all these bands, like, you can't.
You can't unless you have.
You can't, but you can make a very good living. You can make a very good living being an artist and being in a band independently, absolutely. But you're not.
But without any support from anybody doing it all on your own.
No way.
That's what I'm saying.
Like she was saying, there's whole teams of people behind U2. There's probably 50 to 100 people working on their marketing, touring's a whole nother thing, although they have a deal with Live Nation, I believe. But there's just like this whole team of people behind them to get to that level. Besides that, somebody has to have the money, say a world tour. That costs
somebody's got to put the
$200 million to do that. There's no way, unless you're a millionaire, billionaire.
Well, you got to pay all the stage guys. You got to pay all the sound guys. You got to pay the light guys. You got to pay the transpo guys. You got to pay, and like that's what people don't. I dropped $70 for this U2 ticket. Yeah, well, they have a payroll of 300 people. They have 18 tractor trailers that they got to use to move to the next place, and they have to have a group of people sit up there, and then you got to pay for security and everybody. Like that's the thing. Like when you hear people complain, like if you hear a band complain about playing, I'm sure you hear this shit all the time. I know bar owners that are like, bands just don't get, and you can attest to this, Jimmy. Like
definitely.
How much? When you were playing with your band, 3 years ago.
Yeah, when I was playing 3 years ago, I was making $300 personally a night in a band of 5 people.
Right, and then now,
if I can get $100, that's a great night.
$300 for original music?
No, for cover music.
No. Right. Well, nobody's going to get.
The only way we had to do was be a cover band and then slip in a couple originals here and there.
And that's the trick. That's the trick about locally. I've seen bands do that all the time. But you got to do like 3 covers to get to your one original. And then if you play like your one original and the bar owner, like that's the thing that I don't know if people realize, or bands in particular, like if you're getting paid for your gig, you're an employee of the venue. So like, bar X is like, hey, I'm going to pay you $300 to play for tonight, which sucks that the money's come down, but more people don't go out anymore because of the economy and, there's people that...
Yeah, and this area as a whole has never really been... Even though there is tons of great original music, we're not necessarily known for it. So it's a different scene where it's like...
Right.
People want to go to the bar and hear stuff that they know, Yeah, that's just the way it is around here.
But like that... So how... Okay, back to you. Like you have your finger on the pulse of a lot of stuff. And, not to say that you're, intimately involved in everything, but you at least can get a feel for what's going on. It's like, what is going on? How do we how do we assess the problem? How do we move forward knowing what the problem is, and how do we capitalize on it? Because, I think when we were talking about the when you were here a couple weeks ago, it wasn't like, an individual group can do whatever they want to do, but collectively everybody together needs to kind of.
Exactly.
I think it's tough too because there's more competition than there ever was. It feels like there's more people making music now. And maybe that's part of the digital age. Maybe more people are inspired to do those types of things, but it feels like there's just an influx of that. Whereas, maybe 10, 20 years ago, there were a lot less bands and a lot less competition to deal with. And now it seems like every other person has been in a band or is in a band or has made music at some point. And that's just music. Never mind all the other types of artists and things out there. Like everybody has their own art nowadays. And it's the more and more people that I run into, it seems like they're all up to something in some form or another in terms of art. And that, it's a good thing because you have all this creativity going around. But of course, there's only so much money to go around too. And one of the main things that I saw, in my profession that I think you see in a lot of other professions is you have people who are willing to do things for nothing or next to nothing. And then that lowers what everyone else is going to get paid or compensated for because people assume, well, if these 10 bands are willing to play for free because they want the quote unquote exposure, then why should I pay your band any bit of money? And it doesn't matter that you're more professional, that you have better music, that you're tighter, that you've been doing it longer. None of that matters. It's just, okay, what's the cheapest thing that I can get in my venue on a Friday night, on a Saturday night? And they're just willing to sacrifice the quality for something that's cheaper. And then you see, like Jimmy said, bands that used to get paid a decent amount of money are now getting paid next to nothing, or are just being asked to do it just for the exposure of it, and that's tough. I see it. I see writers, same thing.
Is ease of use now been the thing that is it kind of like the it's like God and the devil at the same time?
I don't know if it's exactly ease of use, but it's
following.
It's oversaturation.
If a band has a following,
like
but it's easier to make a movie now. It's easier to make an album.
Well,
it's easier.
No, it's not even that. It's quality, and I think that the music itself isn't going to be what makes the money. It's the show. It's your album is. I think everything is freely given on the internet, and it's just an inevitability that your music is going to leak or it's going to be shared free, and you're not going to get the royalties from it. And if you go back in history, think about Brian Wilson. He had a $500,000. Was it? I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out there, but I remember it was an astronomical amount of money to make Pet Sounds, where the record company was like, "Enough is enough here," because I think $500,000 or $1 million was something ridiculous. But you figure bands had that much money to play with to create their album. That's not there anymore. You make your money in your live show, and the album is out there just to throw your music around so people will come to your shows. And I think that's what a lot of people are disgusted with corporate music, because you go and you watch somebody lip sync on stage, and that's not a performance.
They're not musicians,
right?
They're
entertainers. But they're entertainers. But they're there for the show. You can't bootleg a live show experience. I mean, yeah, you can tape it or whatever, but you're using your music. You have to think about the model before. You have to pretend that didn't even exist, because we're in a new age now. You have to start from zero. And I think people are trying to hold on to the old business model where you make money off of your album. I don't think that's going to be how it works anymore.
That's where we are right now.
Right.
It's a weird time.
Your music is given away, and then you attract people to your shows.
So it's back to the thing where
even
it's
on
like,
a local level, you'll get gigs if you have a following. If you don't have a following, people don't want to deal with you, and that's the blunt reality of it. I've been told that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to see it from the venue owner side of things,
because they have to keep their bills paid
they can't.
too.
I mean, I can see both sides of the story.
Yeah, but that's one of the things. It's like being that this is like hey, maybe we're late to the game on podcast, we're early to the game on podcast locally.
Yes.
Well, think about like Pet Sounds, right? So they had $1 million to work with to record their album. And think about how many years they were able to make money back on that album. People bought the vinyls, they bought the cassette tapes, they bought the 8-tracks. Then when CDs came out, they bought CDs. So you had an album that was released in the 60s, and you were making money on that probably till the late 90s. Where now you're going to make your biggest bang of money in your first week of release probably, and after that you're never going to see a resurgence again, because if you want the album you can go and download it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like, aren't we talking about, like, I mean, at the end of the day, none of this is really art. Like, if you're doing this to be an artist, prepare to, like, be broke.
Look at the artists of the past. Most of them don't even get found until they're dead. Look at a lot of famous painters, or look at a lot of famous writers. They did it because it was their art, and it was afterward.
That was a totally different era.
Exactly. But I'm just saying we're in a new era
instantly connected.
Yeah, but I mean, just using that, like, if you're doing it for, if you're doing art for art's sake without any concept of, like, oh, hey, like, I need to make money, to survive.
Well, speaking of where you get money from, and you Cory, you have a opinion on this, a strong opinion on this, about crowdfunding.
You have a strong opinion on this?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, a little bit. I think it's a good idea in a certain situation.
That seems like the fall to, like, oh, we'll just crowdfund it.
That
like,
seems
it seems
to be
like
the next step now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it seems like the first step.
Right.
It seems like that's the go-to.
Right.
Exactly.
Let's not worry about selling this after or promoting it. Let's
explain crowdfunding.
Is that smart when you might not have enough of a following to support something like that?
Explain crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding is like
Any of us or all
Kickstarter.
of us?
And
Just
things
anybody.
like that.
I think it needs to be said.
Oh, well,
it's Indiegogo, it's Kickstarter, it's basically you say, hey, we need this amount of money to do X.
Okay.
And if you do that, then we give you perks or whatever.
Right.
People are more or less paying in advance for something as opposed
Because
to
they're
paying
supporting
after
you,
the
right.
product. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, which is mostly like always like friends and relatives.
Yeah.
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 You know what I
most of
mean?
the time.
Like, and it's not to knock it,
Right.
It
It's
seems
the
like
people that are closest to you.
right.
But
That's
do
who's going to give you the money.
Do you think for the average artist, does that make sense?
No. I mean, sometimes it does. But
most of the time, what is that not a good idea?
no, because you gotta think about it. You're asking people to give you money. Okay, people are getting hit with music constantly. Hey, check out my, I just recorded an album. Check this out. They're getting hit constantly. Now all of a sudden, you're asking people to put money up front before there's even a product. So along with all of that going on, now they have you asking them for money before you even recorded anything, or maybe you have a demo or something. But it's not going to work unless you have the following, unless you have the people that already know you as an artist, or maybe it's some kind of special cause or something that people can relate to. But I think a lot of times artists think that they're just going to get that money from Kickstarter, and it's almost like false hopes. Like
I feel like the media, because they kind of overblow a lot of those stories, that you see so many of them that you assume that they're all successful.
Right.
And I think you hear about the successful ones, but there's
You don't
hundreds
hear
of
about the
thousands.
4 million that didn't
that
get their
just
money.
That just fail.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how many, like the numbers, like 95%, I think, don't get funded. It's a crazy number. Like this just happened to me today. An artist management sent us an email talking about this, saying, "Hey,
Why don't we crowdfund?"
yeah,
Yeah.
and we basically replied saying, that's just a bad idea." And also, what's going to happen when you're asking for 10 grand and people go to your page and they see that you made $100? You made $50. You just hurt yourself.
Right.
So it's like, why even try to do it unless you think there's a good chance of it actually happening? There's one happening right now from, there's one happening right now from a EDM artist named BT. And what he wants to do is he's been around for a while, 20 years. He's been around a long time.
People know him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he has this pretty big back catalog. And what he's always wanted to do was recreate it with an orchestra. Like a full orchestra, but that costs tons of money. So he did. I think his is on Pledge Music or something. But he's in the middle of it right now, crowdfunding it, and it's doing astronomically well. And that's because he's built the fan base. And now crowdfunding is a platform. Oh, yeah, 20 years. He's been around a long time. And so now crowdfunding gives him the opportunity to do something that he wouldn't normally be able to do. Where the labels are like, no way, we're not going to.
Yeah, but
No way.
but they're not going to be willing to be like BT, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I didn't want to get that one wrong.
You can thank BT for all the Tiestos, the Paul Van Dykes, Paul Oakenfolds, like all those guys. Everybody.
So now
today.
so he goes, okay, I've done this. I want to try something totally new and outside the realm of something that I'm comfortable with, which is, let's get the Philharmonic to do EDM music.
Kind of, yeah. Kind of.
Which sight unseen, I would give money to that, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to give him $50 for it.
But at the same time, there's been people with crazier ideas and they've fallen flat on their face.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean,
it comes down to having the fan base. It really does.
Well, but not only that. I mean, it's if we look at if we look take two, if we look at the totality of entertainment as a business, right? Everything that they do is a gamble. It's an educated gamble. It's
all
based on
businesses.
experience, right? But that's what it is, and nobody really, like how many films, are they like we're going to do a new X-Men because we know it's going to make at least $400 million or $500 million. Even if it's shitty, we're going to make $130 million opening weekend, and just out of curiosity, people are going to get, and we're going to hit the budget, so we're not going to lose money.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like those are like creative gamble. They're not even like gambles. They're like educated gambles.
Well, I don't know if you've heard of Amanda Palmer.
Why have I heard?
She was part of a group called the Dresden Dolls, and now she does her own solo work.
Right.
She's married to Neil Gaiman now, which I think
the comic book guy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which I think increased her exposure quite a bit. But she had this really big kind of cult fan base built up for many, many years. And so she just did a book about, I think it's called The Art of Giving or something like that.
The Art of Asking.
The Art of Asking. That's what it is.
You are like the internet without having to Google anything. That's why I love you. It's the art of asking, Rich.
She did a really great editorial article recently, and it was kind of more or less a summary of what she's doing and what she talked about in her book. And she also did a TED Talk about it too. That was very, very interesting.
You're all about TED Talks.
And she had said for years, whether she was a street performer or a musician, she's always kind of, asked the audience to go along with her and to support her. And they always have in some way or another. And then once she became, successful to the point where, she was doing what obviously 95% of artists can't do, then all of a sudden she had some bad articles written about her, and some people who obviously were not familiar with her work in the past or familiar with her fan base at all, were criticizing her, basically saying that, she's the epitome of these people who are just asking for handouts, that essentially, artists should be working hard on their own to make the money and build it up just like everybody else did. And, just to go and ask people for money is basically begging and stuff like that. And, she has a very unique, different take on that and a different look on that whole thing. And it's explained very well in this editorial, which, you can, I think I read it on LinkedIn, but it's many other places as well.
See, but I take umbrage with, a buddy of mine just did an experimental, I guess you can air quote it, feature locally called Susquehanna. It's neat. The concept is hey, we're going to shoot it on VHS tape and blah, blah, blah. So he did a Kickstarter, it's because you're like, what am I going to do? I can't really find investors and, and see if people are interested. He made, they made their goal. And the thing is like, I posted it one day, cause he's a fan or he's a friend and he's a fan. Probably hates my guts, but whatever. It's a real nice guy. But so I posted it one day saying, hey, my buddy did this, why don't you give it a look? And I'm not like demanding people give it money. I'm like, just give it a look. If you're interested, give a nickel. If you're not, go back to, the Huffington Post. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, so, but then this guy writes like, whom has never commented on anything that I've ever done. He wrote something and I'm paraphrasing. It's like, why don't you go out and work for your money instead of asking for instead of having other people do it for you and blah, blah, blah. And I really took offense to that, because anybody who wants to start a business, anybody who wants to do anything, you know, if you're going to make the widget company, like you got to get investors in your widget company. You know, and you're either going to a bank or you're finding a private financier or you're doing whatever you're doing. So like, I don't really have a problem with the crowdfunding, you know, but I find it really funny that everybody who's like, you know, stop begging, stop whatever. Like, dude, whatever you're doing right now, like, even if you like, you're an internet tough guy and that's totally cool, but like you probably had to ask for a job. You probably had to beg, like you went for a job interview. That's basically going like, hey, I need a job.
And in particular, in creating film, television, and music, it's not like you can just write a prospectus, go to a bank and say, this is my marketing plan and this is how much I'm going to make in the first quarter of my first year. No, it doesn't happen like that. It's not the same model as doing a startup business.
You know, I find that a lot of people, I think on average, the average person has a small amount of expendable income that they would set aside for entertainment, or they feel like, okay, I can spend a couple bucks every week on a DVD or a CD or something, you know, whether, you know, a couple bucks to go to the bar or, you know, to go to a show.
That's how I justify it. I'm like, I'm not drinking so that, you know, $100 a night is now I can get, you know,
I've always, whereas, you know, I definitely see what Cory is saying. I like the idea that crowdfunding can exist because I like the idea of putting something into something that I actually would like to see or care about, because the number one thing, you know, I used to be a manager at a video store, and you hear people go in and they walk
into the industry, man.
Yeah. They would walk the wall and go, you know, there's nothing good here. And then they would slap money down and it'd be the same people every single week after week, would buy stuff that they knew they wouldn't like. They blatantly would say, I'm not going to like this movie, but there's nothing else, so I'm going to put money down on that. I feel like you're just throwing money away in just huge chunks, because that adds up so quick that, I mean, you're talking about hundreds of dollars now, thousands of dollars a year that you're just throwing away at stuff that you honestly don't enjoy, or you blatantly say is mediocre. Every movie this guy does is mediocre, but I'm going to rent this one, and this time it's going to be different. And then they come back with the same result.
Which is an awesome, interesting psychological conundrum.
Right.
Of like,
so to me, a random person, a friend of a friend, was doing a graphic novel Kickstarter, and I just liked the concept of it. And I'm like, you know what? Instead of buying, you know, this book or this movie or something like that this week, I'm just going to throw money at that. This was almost a year ago, and the book is just being printed now. It's just coming out, because that stuff takes forever. I mean, they were just, you know, the writing was done, but the art wasn't done yet. And now the art's all finished. They're putting it together as a hardcover. It was successful to the point where they were able to make it into a hardcover, which was really nice. So, and then that'll be shipped within the next couple of weeks, and I'll get that. And so the payoff took a long time, which I think is what most people don't like about it, is that you're not probably going to get something instantly, or you get these little treats like, oh, here's a T-shirt, or here's a this or that. And it's like, that's great, but
donate to my Kickstarter, I'll send you a bag of Skittles.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the artist should have something done already, and then maybe come for some extra funding or something like that. Something that you can actually, you know, see and hold beforehand.
I mean, looking at the model of crowdsourcing, like would it be more beneficial to, instead of like, hey man, help us make our album, would it be more beneficial to be like, hey, help us do the mix? Like more specific than having it be.
Yeah, but then that kind of defeats the purpose. I mean, they'll get a little bit of money, but
I mean,
the whole point of doing the Kickstarter in the first place is to fund everything.
But psychologically, isn't it more like, you know, investors can see the finish line?
I don't think so. I think psychologically, a person that goes there knows immediately whether or not they're going to actually contribute to it.
I have never
whether
once,
it's consciously or not.
Right.
I have never once invested in anybody's Kickstarter or Indiegogo unless I knew them. You know what I mean?
Well,
and that's the other thing too. It's like
it's the same thing as selling a product. Like, you need to appeal to the people in one way or another. Like that graphic novel appealed to Rich, or like causes always do well on Kickstarter, because like breast cancer or something like that, you might have someone that had cancer.
They do nonprofits on there?
They do all kinds of things on that. Mm-hmm. But you got to realize though that it's just a product, just like anything else that you're doing, and it needs to be marketed and it needs to be promoted. The most successful Kickstarter campaigns are ones that have like full blown, you know, strategies behind them. Maybe not full blown, but they have very
A
coordinated
really good roadmap of where they want to go.
It's very coordinated, and there's tons of information. They make a video. There's so much explanation. There's a list of expenses. There's like everything's there, so that kind of, when people see that, they're a little bit more enticed to contribute. Sure. But and I just think it gives artists like false hope. Like, I feel like they almost feel like, oh, this is going to work. And then 95% of the time it doesn't.
Well, I mean, here's, let's toss in, somebody's got to play devil's advocate. Is it false hope, or is it like naive?
Maybe it is naive. Maybe it is.
To be like, hey,
you got to realize.
Because everybody in their mind wants to think that they're a superstar.
Well, and it's tough though too, because it's hard to differentiate, especially with music. It's hard to differentiate it from a typical product. But you have to think that way as an artist. And it sucks because it's hard to do that, because that's your music. That's what you put emotion into. You were up 24/7 writing this song or making this film or whatever it is. So it's hard to separate that. But in order to actually be successful, you have to separate that, because it's a product just like anything else. And it's a business. It's a music business.
Now, with I want to make sure we touch on film a little bit more too.
Good. Okay.
How do you look at it in terms of you have things like Netflix now, where you have not only streaming, but original programming and stuff being put on there too. HBO is changing their model. We were just talking about that before the show started. You have people just putting stuff right out on the internet, and sometimes filmmakers will make a short film, put it on YouTube, and get discovered, and then next thing you know, they're making a blockbuster feature. There's all kinds of, that whole market has changed too.
I mean, it has, but it hasn't. I think, Cory, you were the one who kind of said to me, when I was like, hey, Taylor Swift took her music off Spotify, she's brilliant. And you're like, yeah, but film's been doing that for a real long time. What did you call that?
It's called windowing.
So you only allow certain things at certain times.
Yeah, just like with a film, it's only in theaters.
Right.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about film is that, if you want to compare the film experience to like music, right? A record, probably has more heart and soul in it than an MP3. You know what I mean? So like an experience of like listening to a record play. I mean, you can agree or disagree.
Right. Well, and it comes with artwork and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So it's more of a tangible, it's more of a spiritual experience, than to have an MP3. Because when you do an MP3, you lose 90% of what was because of compression. Well,
I mean, not really anymore, especially with Apple's quality. They have lossless codecs now and things like that.
So they keep it.
It's pretty true, especially FLAC files. They're just it's just a better use of memory.
What anybody who makes a film, their goal is to get it in a theater. That's ultimately the goal, because if you get into theaters, more people get to see it. If more people get it's a prestige thing. If you get it into theaters, like that's how you're eligible for an Oscar. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not like even that's the standard. You can make an awesome movie, not be in theaters, and not be eligible for an Oscar because you never, which that's pretty corporate anymore anyways. And it's always like, it's a popularity contest. So like to win an Oscar is almost like, okay. The new distribution models, such as like, Netflix, Hulu, YouTube does it. You can pay on YouTube and watch a movie. Hulu, Vimeo is doing it now. There's a couple other websites now that are offering. So basically, like, you upload your movie and then that's how you do it.
Is there something lost in the art, in your opinion? Do you think do you feel like if you were to make a film, do you want people to see it in the theater only?
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's the same thing as like if you make an album, like you want as many people to listen to your album, know, and if more people get to see, like if somebody said to me like, and listen, at most I'd call myself like a blue collar filmmaker. I'm not like an auteur or, like anybody like David Fincher or Scorsese or whatever. But, if you said to me, hey, we'll get you into 3 theaters, or you can go on Netflix and more people have access to it, we don't necessarily know if they're going to watch it. But if more people have access to it, I'd probably go with like the most access, even though like, you know, if you consider it selling out or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's like, and the weird thing about how movies are made is like, you have to find investors and people who are going to fund it, especially in the independent world. Like you find like, you know, you call up your dentist and you say, hey, do you have like, you know, you have 250 grand kicking around that you can give me so we can have like a helicopter shot that you probably don't need, but it's just really cool. And you would just want to do like, that would be me. Like I do a whole movie of explosions and helicopter shots. Cause I have no creativity. But you know, I just got done working on a movie. It's, and it's a drama. Like it's a really intense movie, but it has a built-in audience that I think, you know, people are going to be interested in seeing it, and it's relevant and it's timely, and you know, there was not a lot of money there to do that. And what we pulled off, you know, especially in like the first phone call to be in production, shooting the damn thing in less than 3 weeks, and then done with production in 12 days, and then you're moving into post. Like that's like unheard of. Like you don't do that. So I'm in a really like, nothing in my life has ever been, you know, the typical route. It's always like the path of most resistance. Like that's what I choose.
How are people going to be able to get that movie once it comes out? What is the plan for it? That's
the thing. It's like you got to go. First of all, your product has to be completed. You know, so you have to do the edit, you have to do the sound mix, you have to do the color. You know, there's also things like people don't realize is like, oh, we have to do all the subtitles for, you know, Sub-Eurasia. You know, so like that stuff that's got to get done. If you have to do different audio tracks, so you have to have a stereo mix, 5.1, 7.1. You know, those are all the things because you're building it into the package. It's like, here, like, this is what they want. Anybody who's, and there's totally like umpteen hundred numbers of distribution and film production things and blah, 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 who are willing to pay for it. But it's going to cost. You know, they want to have everything. They want to have like, give us the whole car and we're going to buy that whole car off of you and then we're just going to reproduce it. Like that's what they want to do.
And with declining ticket sales in the movie theaters, we're kind of seeing the same sort of
declining. No, the film industry's still doing pretty good.
Yeah. I gotta argue with you on that one.
Overall, the film industry's doing fine.
But the film industry is always going to tell you because they're owned by like GE and they're owned by all these big companies. Like the film industry is going to tell you like we always operate at a loss. You know, that's what they do. Even though when you're looking at the box office, you're like, oh, they only made, you know, $9.7 million this year and not 9.8. So the film industry is down. Like it's not down. Like everything that you look at has peaks and valleys. No matter what you do, it's not on a constant rise.
But those are the major films with major distribution.
Yeah, those are just the big five. Like that's who you're going through, you know. But they're the ones who account for, you know, all that money. Right. Now you take like the little straight to DVDs or straight to Blu-rays or the VODs or whatever. Like that's a whole sub market that nobody really keeps track of to know how much money did that account for. But if you look at Netflix, you know, which most of us I'm assuming have, like there are times when you're on Netflix and you're like, there's nothing interesting that I want to watch. And there's thousands of films. Like the market is getting saturated. Like nobody's doing anything unique, you know, except for the few people who like, you know, Alfonso Cuarón could not have made Children of Men if he did not make Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Because they're like, oh, you made us $600 million. Sure, we'll fund your $50 million movie with a 17-minute shot that never cuts. You know what I mean? But that's what you do. It's the whole like going back to the Ben Affleck thing. It's like, you know, I do 2 for them, I do 1 for me. And that guy's got 2 Oscars.
So
and most people hate him.
With all these options, do you feel like it's easier or harder for independent filmmakers now?
I think it's getting incredibly harder. I think it's getting incredibly easier to make stuff. I think it's getting incredibly harder to get it out there.
That's the key, I think. I think people, because they think, it's the digital age and, you know, you can make a movie on your phone if you really want to, if you have a really good phone.
I mean,
but you getting it out to people is a different story.
Yeah, that's why marketing is so important. Like, I swear to God, like a few years ago, I had like this epiphany, and I sound like a dork. But
did you fall off your toilet?
Yeah, I was like,
you dreamt of the flux capacitor.
I was in the bathroom and I dreamt up a time machine. No, but I realized it maybe 4 or 5 years ago how important it is. You know, that's at its core, marketing is creating awareness. You know, I mean, there's a bunch of other branches to it, but essentially it's creating awareness for a product, for a cause, for whatever. So that's why it doesn't, you know.
But you have to do it in a way where it's smart. And not a way where it's
at it. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This comes back to the issue you were talking about earlier, where the bar owner is looking for the cheapest option to fill its venue just to get people in the door to listen to music. You choose the ubiquity of this problem goes across all media. And
yes.
Specifically in marketing, a lot of people assume that if they just go in and throw some marketing at a problem without a plan, without creating a plan first, and then B, following that plan throughout the entirety of that marketing campaign, that it's going to stick and it's going to do anything. You have to know where you want to end up in order to actually follow a path to it. You can't just say, oh, I'm marketing, and then just see what sticks.
Right.
You have to have a goal in mind, no matter what you do.
And I think, too, when something is successful, people don't understand that it's because of all of the peripheral marketing that they've been exposed to. You know, oh, have you heard of this new movie? Well, yes, because the commercials are here. It played in front of every YouTube video I watched today. It came through my Facebook feed. That's why I've heard of it. You know, not just because you're, you know, so in tune, unless you're one of those people that's specifically all about film or you're all about music or whatever, and you're following that all the time specifically, you're trying to reach the general populace. I mean, that's where the real money is. So you can't rely on the niche people unless you do something that's very, very, very niche.
And let me come at this from a business owner's perspective. You know, I have a product, okay? I don't have the best product. I don't have the worst product, but I know that I can do what I set out to do. And I know that I'm not going to be ashamed, embarrassed, or feel foolish about what I do. You know, from project to project, it's not, nobody's going to ever offer you, you know, The Godfather. You know, that's what you're not doing. Somebody's going to give you, you're working for somebody else a lot of the times, and they're going to give you, here's what their grand idea is. And whether or not you believe it or not, or whether or not you agree with it or not, you do it to the best of your ability. And, you know, the thing is like we here at my place of work are, you know, we have, going back to like the bands and everything like that, we have overhead. We have costs associated with everything that we do. So a lot of people come to me and they say, hey, how much is a video? I can't tell you that because I don't know what we're doing. You know, right. Just like an album, it's like, you know, if you try to go to, you know, Jimmy, it's a lot easier to record an oboe than it is, you know, Daddy on the Sax Maniacs.
Right. A 10-piece band. Right.
Right. You know, it still might be the same, but it's all what goes into it. And, you know, unfortunately, like, you know, we get offered, you know, bids that we send out. And there's a lot of the times like we don't get them, and we don't, and it's not because it's not, you know, we don't do good work. I think a lot of the times it comes down to dollar value. Like we have more overhead and expenses than most people do. And it's not through like, you know, foolish business planning. It's just, you know, like we want to do bigger, better things. You know, we want the wow factor. We want the thing that's going to make you come back.
Well, you have a studio that can offer those things. You know, some of these people are like, yeah, I'm a, you know, recording engineer, I'm this and that, and they don't have maybe the equipment or the studio for it. So of course it's going to be cheaper because there's not as much overhead.
Yeah, but so coming at it from a business side, it's very difficult for everybody to exist unless everybody is kind of like on the same playing field. So, you know, like every now and again we'll do wedding videos and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, like they're great. And, you know, we get to make a nice story out of it, but, you know, I'm never going to beat, you know, the nephew who will do it for like $200. Like
right.
That's
right.
Never going to happen, you know? And do you fret about that? Like, yeah, sometimes you're like, oh, damn it. I really wanted to do that one. but they just don't have the money to do it. And it happens all the time. Like, we lose bids where, like, okay, so we did a bid a couple weeks ago, and somebody else came in that was like half the price of us. And I'm never going to beat that. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, we have, what are they called? Hot costs? Like, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Like, these are the costs that can never change. Something like that. And maybe I said it wrong, but who knows? I never went to business school, but, we have things that we can't change. And if we change them, what's the point of making money if you can't make the bills?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I could do it for, 40 cents an hour, theoretically, but I could do that for about 3 weeks, and then all of this is gone.
But, as we were saying, marketing is so important that
and I'm just saying, look, I would love to market more. I would love to, get my name out there more, and I would love to do all those things. It's just like, at some point you have to realize that you're a human being.
Well, I'm talking about the customers themselves. They need to realize that if they want to market their product and they want to market something well, you need something that's high quality. It's going to stand out from what everybody else is doing. If you have,
we try, man.
If you have all the nephews doing it for $100 or $200 in the world, then you're going to get a lot of really mediocre stuff that's just going to blend in with everything else.
But at the end of the day, right? Two things. Number one, no one's ever going to deny that Ruth Chris steak is going to be better than the steak and egg bagel from McDonald's. The steak's always going to be better at Ruth Chris. And you get what you pay for.
Yeah, but that's two different markets. So
but is it?
Yeah, it is. That's two totally different audiences. Completely.
Steak. I'm talking about quality of steak.
I know.
And price.
But that's two totally different audiences.
But okay. No. I understand what you mean.
Metaphor.
Right. Okay.
I think that's what you're getting at.
Well, I never said I was good at metaphors. I never claimed. I was always the guy who was like, you can't have ice cream if your dog is home.
It comes down to, if a business doesn't recognize that they're going to McDonald's for their commercial, then that's their problem.
But the climate now is like where a lot of them can only go to McDonald's.
But it's exactly.
So that's why people are pirating music. That's why people are pirating movies. That's why, hey, I want to own this, but I can't pay for it.
That's why a lot of things are being sidestepped, and they're choosing the cheaper option in order to fix whatever problem it is.
And the interesting thing is when I downloaded my first album illegally, when Napster was around, I felt really bad about it.
Well, good.
And now I don't feel that bad about it. Because mostly I'm downloading stuff that I would never buy anyways. But I'm downloading it because it's like, man, I really like Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA.
See, that's where I don't understand, like, why anybody would even do it now. I mean, there's things like Spotify. Even Jimmy said it before, YouTube. Like,
iTunes. If you look at my iTunes, I've spent thousands of dollars.
I know you bought the IU record. I remember that.
That's because you said it was good, and I'd find out real quick if you were lying to me.
Yeah, right.
So I bought his album, and I bought both those albums. You did. And I liked them.
You did. Thank you.
He
thanked you.
But I didn't know if that was helping you out. I thought he was just a buddy. You're just like, hey, this is my buddy who did this great stuff, and you played me the one tune, and I was like, I like this.
Yeah, I don't even remember what. I just remember you bought it.
I bought it right in front of you.
Yeah, I don't remember why. I don't remember anything other than you buying it. So thank you.
Yeah, we were all hopped up on
everyone.
Espresso.
Entertainment thanks you.
Now, Lauren, the whole reason that this whole thing came up in the first place is on a paper that you did, and so maybe to wrap everything up within, we're a little over an hour now, but we wanted to kind of keep it within that amount of time. If you could expand upon that just a little bit, and why this even came up in the first place, what we're talking about.
I'll just say the title of my paper real quick.
Sure.
Analysis of all-channel distribution for network television and the implications of the evolving digital landscape. It's 70 pages if anybody wants to read it.
Holy shit.
Basically,
Is there a Cliff's Notes version of it?
No, this is actually
This is the Cliff Notes.
This is actually the Cliff Notes version. There are longer versions of the research that I did over the course of this year for this paper. I wrote it in 2011, I believe, was the publishing date. I was very interested. I still am. I'm very interested in the possibilities of network television owning their content off channel, which means you watch television, you appointment view for a certain period of time in your life. You watch it at 9:00, the show on X channel. That is no longer necessarily the case. First, the retransmission happened where you could DVR it. You could watch it later on at like 10:00. When you get home, maybe you were running late from dinner. Watch your show at 10. No problem. Then things started, the ball started rolling where you would watch it off the channel entirely on a different device. So it started with the pirating, and then the technology started to catch up where the networks and more to the point, the utility companies were starting to say, hey, wait a minute. We have to get ahead of this because right now we're losing money on the fact that people can get this for free without our control. And what unfortunately happened in the scope of television is the utility companies, the ISPs, the companies that broadcast the content to you took control over the monetary situation of the retransmissions of those network television shows. So the video on demand specifically. And
like on Comcast, like on demand on Comcast?
Comcast owns NBC Universal. Which
Just
is like,
bought it, yeah.
Yeah, well, this was...
They've had it for a little bit.
This is exactly the point, but they were owning the content of the actual content producers. And the content producers weren't necessarily getting a dime of it because of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act relegated that type of retransmission to a non-transferable copyright situation where it wasn't the fact that they were copying it, they were just retransmitting it later. So that little distinction, because of that specific law, which was directly out of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, is the major problem for what we're seeing a lot of this digital retransmission situation that we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
So it's that specific law that we can trace a lot of our problems back to. We've seen a lot of court cases in the last 2-3 years where we're trying to reverse that sort of thing and get the content owners, copyright holders back in the driver's seat, back in control of what their content is. Now, specifically in the terms of television itself, our biggest proponent and the biggest success story that we can see tangibly right now is HBO. Now, this is a weird example because they're not network; they're a subscription channel. But fortunately, what they've been able to do is spearhead the technology to allow them to stream all of their content on a dedicated application, on a mobile device, on your Xbox, on whatever you're trying to see. And what you've seen in the past 2 years, 6 months to 2 years, other networks are starting to get control of that. Mm-hmm. Lawsuit after lawsuit, cable networks have been getting control back over their content and being able to control the apps where they can control the advertisement channel, which they were not allowed to do up until this point. So it's an interesting shift that we're experiencing right now where there's new models where we can actually allow the content producers to at least advertise to us directly instead of going through Comcast, going through Cablevision, going through whoever it is.
But, so on the Xbox One, you have Stars Play, Showtime. I don't know if Showtime's on there. HBO Go just came on, Hulu Plus, Netflix. But the only thing that these people are advertising is themselves.
Now, don't forget, Netflix and Hulu are essentially third party. Hulu is owned by the four.
So let me rephrase that. Like HBO Stars, like you're going to see ads for their shows on there. So they're only advertising themselves. They're not beholden to like Huggies or Colgate.
But specifically the CW's app, they can sell advertising directly to you through the CW app.
Comedy Central too.
Yeah, comedy. You can only watch Comedy Central shows on that app. You can only watch CW shows on that app. There's some channels.
But their advertising is channel specific?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it is a channel specific app. It's a content umbrella. So depending on the network, depending on the content owner.
So they're now trying to take control of their content, and in turn, the more people who get the app, the more revenue they get.
Exactly, because what you see in a network television situation is a sales department is they're flighting the commercials that are appropriate for the show. And when you're watching the show during appointment viewing, you're stuck with the commercials that you have. In DVR, you can kind of skip some, but you see them anyway. You skim a couple of them. Once the ISP takes control of it, they lay on their own advertising, and they make the money towards them and cut the content producer completely out of that cycle. So that was the problem. That was the reason why I had to get into this situation.
The reason why I had to break out my spiral bound, hard covered.
I have the nice binded edition somewhere, but I didn't have time to go find it, so I had to print it out.
See, that's why like I always look to you for stuff that like I need to understand, and then you have to, and then you have to
in
find
general.
and then you have to find a way to like preschool it back to me.
Now I have a long list of recent court cases that I started looking into since we just started deciding to look into this, and I have to actually catch up a little bit because in the past few months I've been a little bit lax in finding myself.
Believe like she's like upset at herself that she's not keeping up on the court cases.
I'm ashamed of you.
I am so ashamed. Well,
and Jimmy and I are like, did you see Sonic Highway last night?
Last night you've heard of the
I just downloaded it. I'll let you copy the file. So you can watch it on your laptop too. And completely bypass the channel.
I was kind of
laying on your lap.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
So Aereo was the most recent court case that kind of went to fruition, and that was settled, I think, on June 25th of 2014. Aereo. It was a case brought up by several broadcasting networks. I know this is kind of on the other side of the situation because they were retransmitting the signals of broadcast systems because the broadcast systems were retransmitting signals of their content producers, but they were taking that signal and then resending it digitally to viewers who couldn't access the cable box, essentially. And that was deemed to be illegal, according to the 1992 Cable Television Consumer Protection and Competition Act, because they became a direct competitor with the utility. And this goes back to the whole problem of deeming the Telecommunications Act of 1996 the barrier to entry for any player to enter the market and be a competing player as is open the door to this whole mess.
Is the problem that, and you know, this print might go for music and everything. I know you guys are like looking forward to wrapping it up. But is the problem that like the technology grew faster than the legislation could even figure out like, what the hell it meant?
Absolutely.
Yep. No doubt about it.
That's historically been the case.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but that's historically been the case since the
inception of technology.
We don't have to blame this all on Obama. This could
we can go
be
back
blamed
to
on the internet or Al Gore.
Look back to the Gutenberg press. The printing press caused issues in legal terms.
What do you mean?
The entire political technology. It's always been technology. It caused such an upheaval in the political circles of medieval Europe. The fact that
figure out like what was like ownership and
not necessarily in terms of owner. Well, yes, actually, in terms of ownership.
On the music side, I wrote about this a few weeks ago. On the music side, it was the early or the late 1800s, right? And there were all these the shows that went around, that traveled around and played music and danced or whatever, and they would sell the sheet music to these shows, right? So that was basically simplified version, but that's how publishing was created and publishing companies started. And so that all these people are making money off of this sheet music. Then they invented a thing called the piano roll, new technology, where all you had to do was go buy this roll and put it in your piano. Of course, you need a piano, and it would play the song.
Yeah.
So when that happened, a bunch of people freaked out. They're like, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do? It's over." In this case, it's music. Music industry's done. Like we're
all music is now dead.
Literally,
that's the piano roll.
Literally, that's what happened. Everybody freaked out, and it took them a little bit. In this case, it wasn't necessarily law, but it was technology that kind of shook everything up, and it took a little bit for the publishers to catch up and realize it's not over. It's not.
This particular case was actually the thing that led to the mechanical license in copyright law. Yeah, that's exactly why we have that.
That's why it's called mechanical.
No,
that's exactly why.
The sheet music's mechanical.
No, but the speedy thing.
The mechanical copyrights.
It refers to the actual sheet music, really. So when you mechanically reproduce something that is set in paper, when you copyright a piece of paper that has your music in sheet music, in notes or notation and instruction, that is your mechanical license. You can reproduce that.
The root of mechanical came from back then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's always been technology.
Yeah.
And they've always been
a little behind.
Behind the curve.
But being creatures of history and learning from history and seeing trends and shit happen and all that stuff, like where does what goes next?
Well, the thing that
the collective shrug.
The thing that I enjoyed about Cory's column, which it appears every other Wednesday on NEPA Scene, it's called Putting in Work.
It's marketing.
Exactly. It's about these types of things in the music industry. Your conclusion, more or less, as we went up the chain and we saw this repeat over and over again, where people say the music industry is over now because of because of cassettes, because of CDs, because of MP3s, because of the internet, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, it kind of works itself out, and everything will be okay, and the music industry will survive in some form or another, and music in general survives and gets out to the fans somehow in some form or another. So these things are always going to continue, and it's just a matter of adapting to them and the laws changing and things like that. So it's not necessarily all doom and gloom. Not everything that we're talking about today, I think, is negative. And a lot of it.
I think something new comes around, it's doom and gloom until we move on.
It is until we figure out different ways to kind of meet in the middle. And I think that's what you were touching on a little bit, Lauren, is how the people that are creating the content are now trying to find a way to make money on it, but at the same time meet those people who are just as easily would bootleg it. Maybe if they make it a little bit easier on them in terms of the technology. And I mean, I know for a fact I would not have a cable subscription at all if I didn't have a DVR, because I'm just not the kind of person that sits in front of the TV for hours and hours on end. Or goes to tune in on certain hours, and my schedule just doesn't work that way. So if I didn't have the DVR, then the few shows that I do watch, which there's only 2 or 3, I would bootleg them. That's exactly what I would do. But I met them in the middle, and now I pay a subscription and I pay for the DVR so that, I can watch those shows when I want to. So in a way, it worked out for them, but it took them quite a few years to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. But again, that's the utilities meeting the needs of the consumer.
Right.
It's having that strong marketing arm, that strong marketing strategy to know that this is what has to be done in order to be graced with your monetary compensation. To put it nicely. That was
the nicest way of saying you paid for that.
You paid for it, yes.
Yep.
They have a serve. They have the pipes and wires that deliver you the content when you want it, the way that you want to see it. And the content producers don't have that luxury, unfortunately. The bands don't have that luxury, unfortunately. Exactly. A lot of artists don't have that luxury. And what are we going to do about that?
Right.
I don't know yet. But
here's, at the end of the day, I think everybody sits around and we try to have this conversation where it's like, how the fuck do we get known? Like, how do we get people to listen to our shit? And how do we, and at the end of the day, I think what it really boils down to, and hard work, perseverance, and most of the time, I think 90, I'm not whoever makes up statistics. I'm not one of those guys, but I'm probably assuming 99% of the time it's just blind, dumb luck. Where you get.
And in your particular case, you put out a quality product. I think the word spreads, and when somebody comes looking for something that is of good quality, that's when they come to you. That's the only client that you really need to get.
Right. And,
you shouldn't be concerned.
It's given me sleepless nights, put it that way, just being like.
But when a project comes along, when Cousin Eddie can take it over and just do it with a cell phone, I wouldn't even worry about it because it's not worth your time.
But here's the thing, I'm not the guy who's, most of the time, I'm not the guy who's like, screw them. I'm the guy who's like, hey man, more power to them. Like, competition breeds creativity. It's going to make me a better better at what I do because you're doing that. I mean, Jimmy, the Beatles and the Beach Boys were like always trying to one up each other.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
They were going to just go on in that more, but
no, no. But at that time they were able to because
that's why
the channel was more controlled. Yeah, but you were able. The channel was controlled, and like I think part of the reason why I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but the movie industry, at least they have some control over their product for the first few weeks when it's in the theater. But then once it gets released digitally, then anybody can have it.
The movie industry has openly admitted, and it's their marketing people and everything. They've openly admitted, like, we care about first weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right? And that's
and we're probably going to drop 60% in week 2, and that's usually what happens.
Right?
Like the second week numbers aren't about like, hey, where we at? It was like, how much did we drop?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's
right.
There's very few movies that are ever just like consistently like, usually it's 40 to 60% they drop.
Right. But now that
weekend to weekend, there's
so many variables in it, you can't, well, we were talking about before, you can't take the chance that you once were able to.
No.
And without taking chances, things kind of fit a status quo, and then you get content out there just for the sake of content out there.
I mean, isn't that the other thing where it's like there's no corporations or people who have the money that are willing to like innovators take chances.
Look at there's only one platinum record this year, right?
Does anyone know who it is besides Jimmy?
Taylor Swift.
Corey knows.
Right.
It's windowing. It's windowing.
Right. And at least, I mean, that's not to say there's not good music out there, but
wait, there's only one platinum record in 2014.
Right.
Correct.
In the entire year. November.
Right.
Correct.
Because
platinum is 1 million.
Yes.
And
she sold 1.2 or 1.3 million
first week.
Mm-hmm.
So no one has hit platinum.
No.
Since January 1st.
Up until about a few weeks ago, there was 0 platinum records in the year 2014. It was going to be. It was going to be. Yes.
Yeah.
But everybody's playing it, at least on like a corporate level. Everybody's playing it so safe that there's nothing appealing. All right, the numbers speak for itself.
Next week, we're going to record an Animal Sounds album.
Did you ever, on a side note, did you ever hear Pink Floyd's Uma Guma?
No.
It's probably a good thing I haven't.
Yeah, listen to that. Listen to that. That'll blow your mind. Maybe next week we can come in with that.
Okay.
Uma Guma.
Or our own version.
Yeah, what's a group of small furry animals gathered in a cave grooving with a pict.
That's right.
That's the name of the song. That's Pink Floyd's Uma Guma. And all it is animals making noises for like 3.5 minutes. It's bizarre.
We'll put it out on the record and just demand that we go platinum. We'll put it up on Kickstarter. We'll start a thing.
All right. Have we hit everything as far as, we're considered?
Yeah. I mean, I'm satisfied with everything that we've got to. I mean, how much more do you want to fit in? Now we're way past the hour.
We are, and my phone died, so I don't even know how far we are.
No, but the cool thing is like these are like the cool conversations where you can just,
Oh, you can go on and on.
Yeah, we could do this for 8 hours and end up like old ladies playing bridge, just talking about nonsense. But so.
But yeah, so until next week, we're NEPA Scene, and I don't know. We haven't decided on a topic for next week yet, so we'll.
Hey man, why don't you have the people on the social media try to figure it out? I mean, it might be.
Let the people decide.
At the end of the day, it could be an interesting experiment where we're like, no, we are not talking about farm penises. First rule of marketing. Know what you don't want. You don't want penises.
Michael Porter once said, marketing is just as much knowing what not to say as it is what to say.
Which explains why I'm sometimes a bad marketer. So I don't know, like what if nobody comes up with anything between now and then, I guess, we'll try to figure out something.
I think we'll do it in the same way we did this week. We'll somebody will bring up something in just general conversation, and it'll turn into a podcast. I think that's the best way to do it.
Okay. And Cory, you're welcome back, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll try to get other guests, but you're our primary. We like you.
That makes me feel good about myself.
You're the first guest ever, so there's feel privileged.
I like it.
Clap for Cory.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's all for us. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's right. It is Thanksgiving.
Love Thanksgiving. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Jimmy?
Bye.